So Ivo Aertsen, one of the founders of European Forum for Restorative Justice and its first chair, how do you see restorative justice developing for the future, or in the future?
Well, that's not so easy to know that how it will develop in the future. I think we are all convinced that we feel very well the huge potential in it. But at the same time, we see in many of our countries in Europe that it is not self-evident, not always easy to implement it, to realize it in a good way. And you have always this kind of tension between the values and the principles of restorative justice in theory and the reality, how you do it, how you organize and apply conferencing and mediation. The good news is, of course, that in many of our countries, restorative justice, last 10 years, has become something that is accepted now by governments, also by a part of the public opinion, as far as public opinion is informed about it. But at least for most of our governments, ministries of justice and so on, restorative justice as idea, as approach, is accepted. It is in many of our countries no longer seen as something that is dangerous for the criminal justice system. So that is, I think, an important progress that could be made in the last 10 years, let's say. You also see, together with that in many countries there is legislation, there is indeed implementation, real implementation of programs. So almost all member states of the European Union have legislation, a formal legislation on restorative justice, mostly in the form of victim offender mediation. Some countries on conferencing as well. So there is a kind of acceptance, there is a kind of implementation, also institutionalization. More and more programs found a legal basis, as I said, have found funding. Quite good funding in some countries, less well developed in other countries. But anyway, the possible problem with institutionalization and broad implementation of restorative justice is that that it becomes a routine, and that you lose a little bit the original values and principles. And for some of our governments, of course, the effectivity or the efficacy of restorative justice programs and practices is important. And what you see in many countries is, I think, that more and more restorative justice programs fall under this tendency, fall under also the risk, I would say, to instrumentalize restorative justice practices, to make them dependent or subordinate to external goals. So it is no longer maybe the interest of the victim and the offender of the community, but it is the interest of an official body or official policies that is the most important sometimes in some countries, or at least it is a risk. So to keep that balance between good implementation, getting funding, being accepted by public opinion, by government on the one hand, and realizing doing good restorative justice practices according to its original values and principles. On the other hand, that is a big challenge for many of us, for many of our European countries, I think. But all by all, I'm quite hopeful in this respect, certainly. And I think we also should accept the diversity within European countries. There is not just one model of restorative justice that we have to apply and develop in all our countries. I think that would be crazy, totally crazy. But the most important is that we discuss practices and models, and also that we stay in a constant development and movement. So we should not be content once we have established a program in a country, but we should evaluate it all the time. We should do research, and also practitioners should do much more research themselves about their practice. And that will allow us to further develop these practices, I think, and that is very important.
Thank you, Ivo. Thank you.
You're welcome.